The question is, how do we get the energy of our sun to shine out of our main sockets and into every kettle and toaster in the world? The answer may well lie here, on the dusty plains of southern Spain, known for its sherry, fighting bulls, and now this. What I'm actually driving towards is a solar tower. And if you believe all the PR hype, it is the latest success story for solar thermal energy. That will generate about 11 megawatts, and that's enough to power 6,000 Spanish homes. It's a bit of a landmark in its own right, really, and a lot more attractive than your typical coal-fired power station. This is more like a modern cathedral for the worship of a forgotten deity. That's really pretentious, isn't it? Can you cut that out? The French dabbled with solar towers in the 1970s. The Americans have been toying with them for over a decade. But let's be honest, who'd have thought it would be Spain, a nation still regarded by many as unfinished, that would get theirs up and running first? And here it is, a fully operational solar tower of power. So, how does it actually work? Well, this is simply a very large mirror. It's 1,291 square feet in area, or in Napoleon, about 120 square meters. It is actually made up of 28 separate mirror panels bolted together. So, if you broke the whole thing, that would be 196 years of bad luck. And there are over 600 of these arrays spread all around this field. I said that these are simply mirrors, but they are in fact heliostats. Loosely translated, that means they track the sun's position during the day, sort of sucking light out of the sky and throwing it towards the tower. It's a very big tower. It's about 40 stories, or 377 feet. That's approximately 115 meters in Roman Catholic. And I'm not terribly good at heights, really, to be honest. But it's okay, because I'm going to protect myself from the adverse effects of vertigo and the risk of falling on my head with this fashionable sun hat. Just for you viewers, I'm going to climb the tower. Again, I'm suffering horribly here to bring you a greater understanding of this latest scientific wonder. Now, from up here, I can see 624 of those heliostats, each one reflecting the sun to the receiver, which is up above me. And that means that the sunlight up there is 624 times as intense as it is down at ground level. And it means that the temperature is 400 degrees C. And that is why, sadly, they're not going to allow me to go up to the next stage, because the instant I walked out there, I'd be burnt to a crisp before I could say anything constructive, which would be amusing, I'm sure, but we haven't finished the rest of the programme yet. Anyway, I think I'll leave you to enjoy the view here. As mystical as the receiver looks, it's actually just a bit of fancy plumbing. A series of water pipes which produce steam so hot it could put a crease in the trousers of every Spanish waiter this side of Barcelona. This slightly dreary prefab is in fact solar mission control. Now, the movement of the heliostats throughout the day is all automatic. It's governed by a big, powerful computer. But in here, they can make very, very fine adjustments. He's got a map of the whole field of heliostats, and you can just sit there and manipulate it to wring absolutely the most energy out of the sun. And from here, they can even tell if one of the heliostats becomes a bit dirty. Now, if it just has the slightest layer of dust on it, its efficiency is reduced by 10%, which they regard as very significant. Dust is a surprisingly low-tech Achilles heel for such a high-tech power station. But being able to power a small town is pretty impressive. So much so that the plan is to extend this solar empire by building a new tower 150 feet taller than the present one. These blokes, for example, say that with this extension that they're building over here, this plant will be able to supply the whole of Seville. And more to the point, 10% of the Earth's surface is desert, and it's not really good for much apart from maybe a remake of Lawrence of Arabia. So why don't we fill them with mirrors and towers? The area of the Sahara Desert could supply the whole of Europe with electricity. But there is a flaw. This would work much better if there was a place where the sun always shone. And there is. It isn't here. This is a rain-sodden suburb of Washington, D.C., but it may be the start of something. Because, believe it or not, this is where a group of scientists are taking the first steps towards building a power station where the sun does always shine. In space. Which, as we all know, is quite a long way up. The obvious way to send stuff up into space is with a rocket. Here's one, it's a Delta. But there is a bit of an issue with it because 90% of the weight of that at takeoff is made up of the fuel and all the rockety stuff that you need to get it up there in the first place, which means the payload, the bit up on the top, is very small. Now that's fine if you're just going to launch something like a satellite, but if you want to take up a load of materials and East European builders, then it's not really good enough and very expensive. Fortunately though, rockets are seen as rather old hat these days. In the future, if we want to go into space, apparently we'll just go in the lift. Or the elevator. Yes, that's the idea. We are going to go into space in a so-called space elevator. It will scuttle up and down a very strong tether stretching over 20,000 miles to a platform in space. The ideal place to build our solar power station, because at that height the station can happily rotate in a geostationary orbit, and it's where the weather, frankly, doesn't exist. The idea of a space elevator isn't actually that new. As long ago as 1895, a Russian scientist, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, looked at the Eiffel Tower and thought, that's not really big enough. And he redesigned it so that it's stretched like a stairway to heaven, all the way from the Earth's surface, 20,000 miles into space. Now, I know this all sounds fantastically fanciful, but it is being taken extremely seriously by the highest strata of space power, i.e. NASA, who have actually said they will award a prize of $2 million to whichever group comes up with the most viable concept for a space elevator. And that is exactly why I'm here in Maryland, on a very unassuming industrial estate, because it's here that I will meet the group who say they have the best chance of winning the pot. And they are in here. That is right. The space community has called on the services of history's great problem solvers, men in sheds. And leading this group of space pioneers are Bert and Steve. Now, before you get too excited about all this, I should point out that it is still very much at the prototype stage. In fact, it is, to be honest, only a model. What's this?
This is just, like you said, a very simple prototype. What we're looking to do here is just scale a rope.
But I could have done this with my Meccano set. Erector, as you would call it.
Well, don't tell anybody that. We should also point out that we're very bright scientists. We spend hours researching the proper pulley system to use. For instance, this particular pulley is from a sliding glass door. This pulley right here is from a rollerblade wheel. Without the education background that we have, somebody like you may not be able to do this.
Really?
Yeah.
Does it work?
Oh, yes, of course.
Have you got a space tether we can send it up?
We have some that looks like a space tether.
A little more tension, Bert? Okay, that's good.
Look, there's a man standing on one end of the space tether to give it the right... this is fantastic. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ready to let her rip?
Yeah.
Got some couches.
Do you honestly think that you'll win $2 million from NASA?
Are you kidding me? Did you see how fast that thing went?
Hey, I carried a heavy payload and went fast.
So there we have it.
Right. Now, two things strike me. One is it's broken, and the other is you can't send your elevator into space powered by batteries. They won't last long enough.
That's true, no. So we have a solar-powered climber.
Well, another different climber.
Oh, yeah, different climber. I think this one's done.
Well,
Yeah,
that's fortunate, as it happens.
yeah,
Can I see it?
absolutely.
Where is it?
This way.
Right. Where's the bin? Oh, here it is. I'm rather sceptical that the world's energy crisis will be solved by bits of washing machine climbing up a piece of string. But I'm about to be put right by another space cadet.
This is Matt.
James. Hello.
Nice to meet you.
And this is Space Elevator Mark II.
Yes, indeed. We've got a set of photovoltaic cells here which collect energy from light.
Solar panels, that is.
Yes, the same thing you might find on your roof.
And this mechanism is the same as the broken Mark I
Yes,
space
yes.
elevator, in essence. And it's powered by sunshine?
Can be, but the sun isn't that powerful and isn't always available. So we're going to be using a laser for the actual competition.
Yeah. And where's the laser?
The laser is unfortunately not that portable. So for the time being, we're making do with a searchlight.
Right, so the cable that's going to go up on the crane represents the space elevator tether.
Yes.
This is the space elevator, and the searchlight represents the laser beam that in the real one will be providing the solar power bit
You've got
on the photovoltaic cells. Has this ever been done before?
No, this is our first time with the climber, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, that's fantastic. We like a good experiment, and we're British, and we admire your optimism. Anyway, I'll leave you to get on with it.
All right.
I know it's very hard to believe, but these chaps really are in with a chance of winning that $2 million prize, because Bert there has been working for a major aerospace contractor for the past 20 years, and Steve also has been working there for the best part of a decade. And Matt, the man with the space elevator in his hand, he has been a government scientist for almost 10 years. So what you're actually seeing here, despite appearances and surroundings, is some of America's greatest brains at work. Only a moment ago, Matt, for example, said, have we checked that when we run this thing, it's going to go up and not down? That's how good this is.
Careful of the solar rays there.
Yeah.
Don't touch there. Hold it underneath. Yeah, hold it there. Yeah, excellent.
I think we're ready, yes?
Absolutely. Let's
There you go.
Right, cue the light, please. I'm actually very excited. Let's go.
There we go.
Whoa!
Yes.
Godspeed, space elevator.
Yeah, it's a matter of
Look at that,
targeting.
look at that. Oh, I love that.
That is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
All right.
Good
Very,
job.
very good.
Good job, Bert. Good job, Matt.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Nice work, Bert.
Thank you.
Sir, I have to admit, I didn't believe it. But once again, you proved that men in sheds rule the world. That's fantastic. Well, how about that then? Of the 22,000 miles that the space elevator has to cover, it's travelled the first 125 feet. Now, I know that doesn't sound very good, but consider this. You'd think nothing of getting on an aeroplane and travelling all the way to Australia. And do you know how long the first powered flight was by the Wright brothers in 1903? 125 feet. So there you have it. Well, okay, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself. There are a few problems to iron out with the elevator, not least of which is making a tether strong enough to stretch out into space. So let's take a step back. Where did our insatiable hunger for more and more energy come from? Well, that would be the Industrial Revolution. In the Industrial Revolution, life expectancy exploded. The world changed, and most importantly, for the first time, we felt we had access to a seemingly inexhaustible supply of power. steam. Hey.
Once we'd seen the power of power, everything about life improved. And everyone had shoes.
It's a very dignified way to drive around with this pleasant chuffing noise behind you.
The age of consumerism had begun, making us eager for more and more energy. In fact, in the last 10 years alone, the amount of global energy consumed has risen by a massive 25%. But I think there's a problem here. We might think we're all very sophisticated and clever, but it's all actually very primitive. Because most of our energy is coming from coal, oil and gas. So all we're really doing is digging stuff up from the ground